You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. This is Force 13 Live, our latest coverage on Typhoons Lekima and Krosa in the Western Pacific. We're looking there at a visible image of what those two storms look like right now. Lekima earlier rapidly intensified to what we believe was a Category 5 peak. It's now off that a little bit down to a mid-range Category 4 storm at this time and could intensify further after it finishes its Eyewall replacement cycle. Or many Eyewall replacement cycles. I don't know what's going on with Lekima right now. We'll find out as we go along this stream, I'm sure. Also, Krosa is a huge storm and will be heading towards the Japanese Ogasawara Islands. Lekima is a stage 10 on the CDPS. That is the highest possible stage. So what that means is that the potential for damage and destruction is extremely high for the southernmost Japanese islands and for the northern tip of Taiwan. Not just the wind and the high wind, but the wind field and also huge amounts of rainfall, which could exceed 600 millimeters. To talk about this with me tonight, my name's Nathan Foy, by the way. Hello, nice to see you all again. Joining me tonight is our team. It's quite a large team tonight as well. We're talking about these two systems and quite a few passionate people who are talking about it with us. Let's see if we can introduce them. We're joined by Ryan, Ethan, Justin, and Isaac. Good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
There they are. First of all, why don't we go to Isaac's imagery, because he's showing us two panels there showing the infrared imagery of Lekima along with the track forecast from the JTWC.
Yeah, good evening everybody. Hope everybody's having a great day or night where we are. But going to the storm itself, this is the updated JTWC forecast position where the storm's going to go. Currently it is located, let's see if I could put this down a little bit. It's right around where that green dot is, or where my finger's at. Don't know if you can see that good or not.
Yeah,
my connection's going to be going in and out. Yeah, great. But that's where it's at currently right now as of the JTWC newest update. And they have it making landfall over, and excuse me if I mispronounce this wrong, because I'm not keen on pronouncing Japanese islands, but I believe it's called Iramote or Iramote Island, which is a national park over in Japan, on one of the outer islands in Japan there, and I've been making landfall there. Looks like just a little bit before 18 Zulu on the 8th there by the looks of it. But that's an updated track, and then towards the right there you can see the satellite imagery. Earlier the eye was a lot more well defined. Now it's kind of shrinked as it were a little bit and become more clouded over. That is likely due to an ongoing eyewall replacement cycle, which has been evident on microwave imagery and also on Japanese radars. It's starting to get into the range of the Japanese radar. That's been evident over the past 3 hours, so it's likely it's going under an eyewall replacement cycle at the current time. But that's all I had to say at this point in time. Nathan?
Sure. All right. Thank you very much. So if you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air tonight, we'll of course be taking any questions and comments as we always do here on Force 13 Live. Now I'm struggling with one of the streaming pages. Okay, let's bring us back to the latest. This is the floater imagery of Lekima as day breaks. Day has broken earlier over the region. You can see how developed the eye was overnight. Looking at it this morning, it looks a little bit shallower. It's been in and out quite a little bit with its intensification. The eye temperature went down to minus 40 Celsius, which is pretty poor. Then it went up to minus minus 4, and now it's gone back down again a little bit, I think. Can anyone fill us in on that?
I think that it went down pretty significantly, then it rose back up.
Yeah. Alright, Ethan, show us what you're looking at. Same thing, actually. Your observations on that same imagery.
Yeah, this is the satellite imagery of Lekima, currently with winds of 145 miles per hour, probably going to regain Category 5 intensity as it moves in the general northwest direction over the next few days, but you can see the amount of influence to the south of the storm that's being enhanced onto the Philippines. The outer band to the south of this thing is massive. There's a lot of rainfall occurring over Luzon as a result of this. But it's not only to the south, it's to the north, and some of the Japanese islands are getting some rainfall as well.
Yeah, and it's still got that huge banding to the south side there, which could still be delivering some maybe squally conditions and strong winds to parts of the northernmost coast of Luzon. How long do we think it will be, guys, until Taiwan and the southernmost Japanese islands really gets impacted from this storm? Actually, before we go on to that question, I must also remind people that Taiwan has also had an earthquake in the last 2 hours, a 6.0 according to the Taiwan Weather Bureau, or a 6.4 I think it was from the USGS. So a very shallow earthquake at just 10 kilometers, occurring just off the coast of northeastern Taiwan, about 75 kilometers I think it was, something like that, from Taipei. So that compounds the situation even more, and the preparation plans, I think people will have had an early start as they've been waking up to that rumble. But back to that question, and if anyone's got any comments on the ground, I'm sorry, if anyone's got any thoughts or where am I going with this? Observations. Anyone in Taiwan right now or in the local area that could tell us whether there's been any impact from that earthquake or how preparations are going for this typhoon, please let us know. But the original question I was going to ask, when do you think this storm will start really affecting these islands?
I'm thinking like 24.
Ryan?
I'm thinking like maybe like 24 or 36 hours out. I think the JTWC has.
You think it'll be that late?
That late? I mean, I don't know. It really
Hold on a minute.
could be sooner than that.
I think it will be. The JTWC, doesn't the JTWC have the storm passing over those southernmost Japanese islands in about 18 hours time?
Yeah, just a little bit before 18 Zulu on the 8th.
We'll certainly have to revise that number then, Ryan. So, you know...
let me have a look.
These land areas could be seeing the full force of this storm in 12 hours then, really.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I think it's only going to be like a few hours, actually. Never mind.
Crikey.
Yeah.
Going off of the Conan uncertainty that I made just a few hours ago, at the 36-hour mark, I have the storm located to the northeast of Taipei on Taiwan with 155 miles per hour winds. So I don't actually see the core of the system affecting Taiwan, but it could affect parts of eastern China, mainly noting Shanghai as a significant typhoon.
Yes, that as well as Taipei, two large urban areas that could be significantly impacted by this storm. Isaac, were you pointing something out there?
Yeah, I was pointing out the JTWC forecast has the typhoon going just to the north of Taiwan there, but over hitting the Japanese islands here. Like I was saying earlier, about looks like just before 18 Zulu on the 8th of August there.
So we're looking
so
there at about probably, what time are we on now? 7 p.m. local time? Something like that. 7, 8 p.m. local time. So that isn't too far away. That means that tropical storm force winds will probably be occurring very soon, actually, given how large this storm's wind field is, possibly before the onset of the heavy rain bands. And if you every so often you'll see a graphic on the left-hand side of your screen. There it is, showing that CDPS stage 10. But also the next screen shows that gale force wind area, that tropical storm force winds highlighted in green, just about on the edge of those islands already. So when we're thinking about preparing for this storm, it's going to become rather dangerous to do so very soon. It's got to be finished now if you're on those islands.
Yeah.
The DTWC cone pretty much has the damaging winds, 50 mile an hour winds plus, well, not mile an hour, 50 knot winds plus, affecting those islands at just about 6 Zulu on the 8th, according to the DTWC cone. And tropical storm force winds, they're pretty much affecting the islands now. I saw what they... oh, sorry for interrupting.
Just pointing out, there's another image there, the latest from the US Navy imagery, showing the yellow colouring around the eye, which denotes minus 80 degrees Celsius cloud tops, which is pretty impressive. The centre, of course, is where the eye is. It's looking pretty shallow at the moment. The deeper the eye, that means the higher the temperature inside the eye. That means the stronger, generally, the storm is. Looking at that imagery there, not the best resolution that is on offer, but it's looking pretty shoddy, I must say, right now. But those cloud tops are massive around it, so when you even it out, we're still looking at a significant Category 4 storm there in all likelihood. And one or two little convective blow-ups just off those southernmost Ryukyu Islands, and indeed further north near Okinawa as well. Looks like they're being affected a little bit. That's Francisco's old map. This is Lekima again on that JTWC forecast if you want to see that more long range. JTWC are expecting a Category 2 landfall. Yes, Category 2 landfall in eastern China late on the 10th, early hours of the 11th local time. And then they're actually calling for it to move, where are we, 3 miles east of Shanghai at their latest forecast, probably as a typhoon, and then further towards the north. Of course, as we see quite often in forecast cones, the track can shift anywhere within that cone. Well, not exactly anywhere within that massive JTWC cone, because they treat it a little differently. Tropical storm force winds could be seen anywhere within that cone. Slight difference. Let's not go into the specifics, but you get the general idea of what we're looking at there, and some slight deviations are possible. Where should we go next? Justin, any thoughts?
Well, overall thoughts on the system?
Sure.
Well, I'm rather surprised that Lekima has intensified this quickly. I mean, we were expecting like a Category 3, but yeah, it intensified quite quickly, and it's going to pose probably an extremely significant threat to Taiwan, particularly in the form of rain. And I just want to point out this fact, but 10 years ago today, Typhoon Morakot was affecting Taiwan.
Wow.
It was just about to make landfall. And you know how much of a rainmaker that was.
10 years ago now,
Yeah,
my goodness.
that was like what, 8 feet of rain dumped on Taiwan or
Yeah, like
something
100
that?
inches.
Yeah, something crazy.
So, Justin, do you think the current forecast, which is about 600 millimeters or more for the island, is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's a little fair. Although it could be more. I think 600... I really haven't checked it out that much, but I'm assuming like 600 millimeters or more is probably a fairly good area.
Ryan, how about you, and possible rainfall threat to China as well?
Oh yeah, well this storm is... I think this is more going to be a rain threat for, of course, Taiwan and the Ryukyu Islands. Or I'm thinking more of Taiwan, though. I understand that forecasts are currently showing totals up to 600 millimeters in some spots, maybe even more than that. We'll just have to see. And then, of course, This storm is forecast to, after it affects the southernmost Ryukyu Islands, it will then sort of head up towards eastern China and maybe even affect Shanghai like directly, and they could still be a strong typhoon by the time it gets there. So that's something that we need to watch very carefully.
Especially when we consider those very warm sea surface temperatures of over, well, around 30 degrees for quite some time.
Yeah. And I guess...
Go ahead.
The other thing that I was going to point out is I want to say that the sea surface temperatures might be a little warmer than usual. We just haven't had all of the typhoon activity that you would expect, so all of the energy is really just getting built up in the Westpac. And that's, I guess, one of the reasons why you could say that Lekima is really intensified in the way that it did, is because there hasn't been like a lot of weak storms just taking those warm water energy. I mean,
yeah, that's the
Kheema
thing.
has
The
all of it.
relative humidity over the area is rather high as well, and that must be due to the lack of activity so far, at least in part, and those very warm sea surface temperatures as well, which, you know, no storms have really been feeding off of it. The storms that we have had so far since Wu Tip in February have been very weak, haven't they?
Literally all of them were like 40-mile-an-hour tropical storms until like Francisco, with the exception of Danas. Something ridiculous like that.
So it has been a season that's been very much limping until we've had this trio of storms. Francisco first, which is still in existence if you want to see it. I was just about to line up the map and then it shot away from me, so I'm going to try and get that map up for you to show you all three of these systems right now and the latest visible. Just trying to get that back. Here is an image. So the remnants of Francisco are up there near the top, off the coast of Russia now. They will move into Hokkaido, so there could be some gale force winds there as well and some significant rainfall. There is sort of a moisture plume ahead of it, really, that's extending already over the northernmost Japanese islands. Further south is the unmistakable two typhoons, Lekima on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, Typhoon Krosa. I don't know if you just heard a little bit of background noise here at Force 13 HQ. I think there were cats fighting outside. How very strange. But these two typhoons are really large as well. Krosa in particular, the wind field is likely to expand even further as it affects some of those Japanese islands. Alright, let's see if we've got any questions. I did see quite a few going through earlier on, and I've lost them already. I'm just going to pick out whichever ones I see first. Will Lekima make a major hurricane typhoon, in this instance landfall? So that's category 3 or higher. It's actually a decent question, because if it does happen to just miss these islands, it could conceivably not make landfall at all as a major typhoon, although major typhoon conditions will still most likely be felt on these islands.
I completely agree with you, Nathan. If Lekima does strike some of these little tiny Japanese islands, which are really hard to hit, then we'll have a major hurricane typhoon in this instance, as you said, landfall. At this point in China, I don't think that's gonna make landfall as a major in China.
No, it's probably going to be like maybe a Cat 2 at the worst case scenario for Lekima making landfall in China.
Just get another view now. This is a close-up here on that true color imagery. Another question, do you think that Lekima will hit Taiwan as a super typhoon? I think we can rule that one out now. I think it's already gone too far east and north to actually even make landfall on Taiwan at this point. You think?
Yeah, it's gonna go north of Taiwan at this point. I can't really see it actually hitting Taiwan.
Yeah, I never really expected it to hit Taiwan.
Now, we know that Taiwan sometimes gets a really bad deal with these storms, but they do get away with a lot as well. And this looks like it may be, I'm not saying they're going to get away properly with it, but from the absolute worst conditions that could have been possible. This could have been a Category 5 making landfall in Taiwan. As it is, it looks like it's going to miss the center, but there could still be typhoon conditions, probably will be typhoon conditions on the northern tip of Taiwan, and huge amounts of rainfall that will most likely lead to flooding. But there is a situation right now, and you can see the bottom of our screen ticking by some of those warnings that are in effect. That should be up to date. Heavy rain advisories. It is 161 miles from Miyakojima. That is the latest distance estimate. So at this point, where should we throw it to next? Let's go back to Isaac's imagery. He's showing us another view of how those two typhoons have been developing today.
All right. Here you can see the wide shot of both typhoons right now. You can see we have around end here. You can see Typhoon Krosa to the east there, and then to the west there, obviously you see Typhoon Lekima, or Lekima, however it's pronounced. But you see both these typhoons existing. Earlier, Krosa was getting seared to the northwest earlier, as you can see what some of the banding being constricted to the northwest there. But now it seems to let up somewhat, so now it's able to form a decent CDO for the time being, and whether or not it intensifies more is to be seen. And then to the west there, you see Lekima that has been intensifying over the past 3 hours and seems to be undergoing an Eyewall placement cycle at the time being, which is likely fluctuating the storm strength at this point in time as it heads towards these Japanese islands that you can't see in this loop because they're so small.
So quite a pertinent question. Sometimes, when we hear this kind of question, we think, oh man, you really have to say that. The chances of it becoming a Category 5 once more, as we say it, because we believe that it did become a Category 5 earlier today. Do we think that's going to happen again?
I really think that it has a really good possibility once it finishes an Eyewall replacement cycle. The question is, will it have enough time to get? And I feel like it's really starting to run out of time at this point.
I think so too. If I was gonna put out a prediction right now, maybe 155, which is just short of Category 5 status.
Of course they're gonna do that.
That's what I would do if I was the JTWC right now.
But we don't know what they're going to do.
And that is sort of an answer to another question there, which was about our predictions. But I'll ask the team as well. Your predictions, guys, for what this storm will do. Peak intensity, whether it's still yet to come, whether we've already had it.
Well, I don't know if we already had it, but in case that we haven't done, if it goes for another peak intensity, it'll probably be somewhere like a high-end Category 4 at best, I'd say. And after that, it'll probably just head off into that east and west and north trajectory before striking Taiwan as a typhoon. Sure, striking China as a typhoon, I meant China.
China, alright, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense.
We're actually near.
Cool. So there we are with that. Ethan? I think we didn't... Oh, you're showing us your cone? Okay, here we go. Ethan's made his own cone, which...
Yes. I have been making these for a little while now.
Working with us with his cones, I should say, because the actual output does go on our social platforms. So, what have we settled on as a team? That's quite an older forecast. It was from a few hours ago, wasn't it? When we thought that it was going to go back to Category 5 status quite easily, but it would appear in more recent imagery, having looked at it, that it probably will struggle more. Do you think personally it will still get back to Category 5 status?
Yes, I do think that the storm will regain Category 5 status. Now, if I were to redo this cone right now, I would change the 160 mile an hour point to 155 and the 165 down to 160. So I would revise those down slightly.
Let's bring us now back to the JTWC warning cone for Typhoon Krosa, which we haven't showed on the air yet. You can see it here. Still calling for a very large wind field to establish, well, already has established, but to grow even further over the next few days. That's what the quadrant radials denote. And then, interestingly now, what's been creeping into this forecast for Krosa is that it's going to start to veer off towards the west again, and that obviously puts Japan underneath more threat. Do we think this could turn into a significant risk for Japan? Because initially we were thinking that it was going to sail off towards the northeast without much problem at all.
Well, it does look like it could be, I guess, a long-term threat to Japan, like maybe a week. So, I don't know. We'll just have to really wait and see what exactly happened.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see if we can get any more comments. There are a lot coming in, so we're just trying to catch up right now. Might have missed some here, so my apologies. Let's go through some quickly, guys. That's an interesting question. Could Krosa reach Category 3 before weakening? Well, it's higher than that already, just so you know. Do you think it could re-intensify to Category 5? We already had that. Will Krosa directly affect Ogasawara? It looks like it. Certainly tropical storm force winds.
Yeah, it does look like they're going to get affected.
Why has the CDPS rating gone up from 9 to 10 for Lekima when its winds have weakened? What has happened in the last update? So in the last 6 hours, it has risen from stage 9 to stage 10. Might not make much sense when you note that the wind has gone down, but what has gone up is the rainfall estimate, which has risen from around 500 meters during the update when we went to stage 9 to just over
meters?
Millimeters, up to 600 millimeters now, which puts it up to stage 10 along with that large wind field. Can Lekima strengthen any more? Yes. More questions relating to the ones that we've already answered. Could Lekima still have a big impact on Taiwan? Most definitely. The JTWC there still calling for typhoon winds to affect a small part of the island. So yeah, I would say that's quite severe.
Currently on my screen right now, I have some model guidance for Krosa, kind of answering the question earlier. You can see on this left screen here, let me see if I can get it up full screen. You can see how really the JTWC marked in the red track here are forecasting the storm to go significantly more west than what the models are indicating. I think that that's quite interesting, and they actually want almost the storm, once it turns toward the northeast, to almost pretty much head in that direction for a few days, while the models want to take it east then north.
All right. Could you show us Lekima on that as well?
I sure can. And here is Lekima's. Here's the what they're calling for the track. The general consensus is for the storm to. But the general consensus is for the storm to move towards the northwest. Not really going to affect Taiwan, as we've said multiple times, with a direct landfall. Yeah,
it is still going to affect Taiwan. Anyone who's just tuning in, it's still going to affect Taiwan, possibly severely. A huge wind field. As a matter of fact, Ethan, just to point out, tropical storm force winds are expected across the whole island.
Wow.
Just bear that in mind when we look at these models that say, oh, it's only going to affect the northern side. Potentially damaging winds will be affecting all of Taiwan.
Also looking at it, it looks like also a significant portion of the eastern part of China there. I mean, that's a lot of population there along the east coast of China. As well as even the southernmost Ryukyu islands, almost all of them are being affected by tropical storm force winds or are expected to be.
Yeah, Shanghai, by the way, 60% chance of tropical storm force winds. which
That's
is
remarkable.
significant for such a large city as it is. And you're even talking about Korea, southwestern part of Korea, over 10% chance of tropical storm force winds from this as it blows up even further when it moves up the coast of China. These are two enormous storms. Look at the wind field, potential wind field, the probabilities, on Krosa. Even larger. Iwajima, near 100% chance of tropical storm force winds. Ogasawara, just over 70%. Tokyo, just less, that's about 7 or 8% chance of tropical storm force winds. Osaka, about the same. And those two cities alone are quite some distance apart. Not to say that winds will affect both of those locations, but usually when we're talking about the wind speed probabilities, we're looking at a much narrower area that we expect the potential. But as it goes later, this is only out to 5 days, so as it goes later on, as we come back tomorrow and the next day, you might see the whole of Japan light up in some colours here with the potential chance of tropical storm force winds, depending on exactly what the storm decides it's going to do. Can't remember what's on my next panel. Let's just have a look. There's just the latest warning map from the JMA on the left-hand side. I think they're warning... yes, that is now a typhoon warning for the southernmost Okinawa area. The Miyako and Yayama Islands as it goes off our screen there. So let's bring it back to that latest floater imagery of Lekima as we continue to discuss it with the team. Any further thoughts just now, guys? Oh, it's all gone quiet. Well, in which case we can. I was trying to show Isaac's imagery, but that for some reason isn't loading. So here at Force 13 HQ, we're going to take. It was actually scheduled a short break here, and we'll have more information on Typhoon Lekima with the latest in just a few moments. Stay tuned. If you've got any comments or questions, send them in, and we need to hear from you. If you're anywhere near Taiwan, observations. They did have that earthquake not so long ago. We need to know that everyone's all right and that preparations are continuing normally. It could be a very long few days over in that part of East Asia. Back in a few. Say 3 now. That should say 3. Why hasn't that changed? We're back with Force 13 Live. I think we had a kind of technical difficulty that I just disguised as a short little break here. Hopefully things are working normally now. Let's see if we can cross over to Isaac's screen. Just about. There we go. Just fading you up now. Isaac, show us what we're looking at here.
Alright, so we have both twin typhoons here. We got Lekima on the bottom left there, on the bottom right. We got Krosa on the bottom right there. And then in the middle, you see both storms, a wide view there, the water vapor imagery. You can see the massive amount of water vapor both of these storms producing currently at this point in time. You can see Krosa is getting more and more defined with time here. You can see it's developing a more pronounced CDO than it was earlier. Earlier it was more kind of lopsided now, but now it's getting its act together. Over here we see Lekima, and that's been undergoing an Eyewall placement cycle. Whether that Eyewall placement cycle finishes or not, to be able to let it intensify is to be seen. But for the time being, it's still a powerful system nonetheless, and still a threat for the major Japanese outlying islands. I forgot the name of them. Sorry about that. I forgot the name of them, but they're going to be a threat for them later down the line in a few hours here, actually. So that's my take on it so far.
All right. Well, looks like we've had another issue here at Force 13 HQ. Our streaming page has gone down. What fun. Let's take some questions whilst we're at it then. I am well behind with the questions, so I'm going to try and track back here. Will we be doing a live tropical weather bulletin? Well, this is live tropical weather updates, so this will, if we are still live shortly, that will be replacing the tropical weather bulletin tonight. Could Lekima still have a big impact on Taiwan? I think we've discussed that already. It will. The projected landfall for Krosa, we sort of spoke about that as well. It will affect parts of the Ogasawara Islands and then possibly onto Japan next week. It's too far out to actually say for sure whether it will affect those areas or not. Alright, on the Dvorak imagery, it looks like it's trying to clear out. Any thoughts?
Let me go ahead and look at that, actually.
Yeah, I'll have a good look at that and see what I see.
I mean, it's
Okay,
it's trying. It's still about
for some reason.
It's still about the same.
Crap going
Yeah,
on at the
it
minute.
doesn't look like there's too much change in the latest frames, but I can see it. I mean, could try to start intensifying right now. I mean,
Oh, I think we're having issues right now with this.
We're having
Yeah,
all
we
sorts of
just
issues
died.
tonight, I know, man. We're having all kinds of issues. I'm not sure what is going on. We're not going to labour that point. We're going to keep on with what we're looking at on the screen. So you might want to explain that again just briefly.
Me?
Either of you.
Well, you could see with
Yeah,
this.
sure.
I don't have the voice right now, but you could see both typhoons there again. Hopefully, you guys are able to hear me. If you're not able to hear me, make sure you type in chat that we're having issues or anything, and we'll try to get that fixed to the best of our ability here. But over to the bottom
betcha.
left, you see. To the bottom left, you see Lekima over there. Bottom right, you see Krosa, and then in the middle top, you see both systems right there. And water vapor, you can see the massive moisture envelope in both systems. And if you look really closely here, I know it's kind of hard to see, but if you see the northwestern side there, you can see how the convection, when it's trying to fire over towards that area, it gets kind of pushed back a little bit. And that was due to shear that it was encountering earlier that may have led to it not being able to intensify the last 24 hours. But now it seems to have broken out of that for the time being, at least the CDO, and now it's getting its act together slowly here. Lekima has been getting its act together for the past 24 hours or so, and it's currently undergoing an Eyewall placement cycle. Okay, I'm hearing the stream is good now. Okay, that's good. It's going under an Eyewall placement cycle right now, indicated by microwave and by radar. Whether or not it completes that or not and is able to intensify, again, is to be seen. It's been, looks like, well, from what I've seen, it's been undergoing an Eyewall placement cycle for about the past 6 hours or so, maybe more than that, maybe less, is what I've seen. But that's my take on it. Go ahead, you guys.
We're now joined by Strat. Hello.
Yes.
And you're joining us tonight looking at these storms. Have you been watching them evolve today? Hello?
Getting a hold of him.
Alright, he's not with us. So we'll continue looking at that imagery. Do we think Lekima will impact Ishigokijima in the next 24 hours? Pardon my ignorance. I'm not sure which one that one is.
Oh, I know what they're talking about. I think they're talking
Ishigaki.
about. Is it
That's the same
Ishigaki?
thing, okay.
Ishigaki Jima, probably.
They're the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's coming pretty soon. That's going to be well within 24 hours.
Yeah, okay, I'm looking at it right now. It's probably the closest approach to Ishigaki Jima is probably going to be, let's see if I can find it here. I can't. Okay. It's probably like 18 hours out. Maybe even a bit sooner than that at this point. And I think that tropical storm force winds are really going to be starting there very soon, as well as heavy rainfall as well.
I can't quite fathom the comments at the moment talking about Guess the Storm. We're not doing that tonight, guys. We're not doing that tonight.
Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yes, we can hear you, Strat.
Oh, okay, that's fantastic.
So what are your thoughts
Okay,
looking at these storms today, Strat?
I've been pretty busy throughout the day, but I've been... What?
Huh?
Okay. I've been paying more...
You can... Okay. Well, for some reason, Justin can't hear you, but I can, Strat, so go right ahead.
Well, I've been paying more attention to Lekima throughout the day than Krosa, probably for obvious reasons, as...
Of course.
Lekima is the stronger storm and closer to land. Its development has certainly been interesting, considering it did reach Category 5 status earlier today, according to SATID. But the weakening since then with the Eyewall replacement cycle, it's still a very powerful system. And what is it? How much rainfall do we want for Taiwan right now? I know some models were even saying 32 plus inches for parts of northern Taiwan.
Well, that sounds like a lot. I think we're looking somewhere in the 20s, though.
Because I think we have in our Discord server the HWRF run tried to run 32 inches.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me, I suppose. HWRF can often go quite
And I saw someone mention in the
Sorry.
chat the graphic that 2 typhoons is actually 4 because Francisco is a typhoon as well.
Yeah, okay.
That's a
Well, enough of that.
Yeah.
To much my relief, the streaming service graphics have returned after we had an outage for a few minutes there. It's been an absolute pandemonium 10 minutes here in the technical branch. We've been doing our best during the meantime, but there it is once more. Imagery of Lekima. This is the latest floater imagery. And still the eye not looking particularly impressive on that. Let's now try and get some RAM slider imagery as well, where we can see the latest on the infrared channel on how the storm's actually been looking and whether we can make any deductions from that. Let's see now. There it is. So, yes, the eye had a good patch about an hour or 2 hours ago. Then it faded away again, and now, well, is it about to come back out again? Obviously, a more well-defined eye, a clearer eye, a deeper eye means a stronger storm. What you might be able to deduce from this imagery as well, and I think we're just guessing too, really, but you look at this imagery, guys, I think I'm seeing 2 fractures in the eye wall, northwest, which has quite a looks like a crack in it, and you could see that on visible as well, by the way. And southwest, where the eye wall is looking a little bit weak there, looks like there's 2 fractures, and that means it is still some distance from actually getting a good intensification phase going. So I think based on the weight of that alone, I would probably rule out now the chances of it reaching Category 5 status again.
Yeah, unless something
it's-
completely unexpected happens.
Well, how often have we heard that before?
Last night when we were saying it'd be completely unexpected to become a Category 5 in the first place. So, not likely, but improbable, not impossible. That's the best way to phrase it, really, at this point in time.
Very interesting. Okay, I'm just looking at...
Isaac's got some radar imagery, actually, on
okay.
his phone.
Let's move on to that then.
He's
That's
got
not radar
infrared
imagery.
and
Oh, there.
radar on
Okay,
the
I see the phone. Yeah.
Yeah, both.
I'm sorry.
Oh, which one? Oh, you want my radar? I don't want the satellite.
Do both at once, man.
No,
I-
do
I-
them
I
one
can
at a
try.
time.
Well,
Be
as
a
you can see with
fool.
radar here, you can see a double eyewall feature as evidence on radar. Again, this is on the outer fringes of the Japanese radar sites over in the islands, and they're picking up the storm right now. And this eyewall's been persistent for the past 6 hours or so. And I am noticing this outer, looks like apparently this outer eyewall by the looks of it here. And if I zoom out a little bit, you can see the outer fringes of the storm. Sorry, it went blurry. I don't know why it's going blurry. Apologies for my camera if it's really blurry right now. But yeah, I just wanted to show radar. I was just looking at it, and I guess I
Interesting.
had it on my camera. And there's satellite imagery there.
And there it is as well. And you can quite clearly see that eye sequence, the one that we were watching just before too. We received a question through Facebook. Why do you think Lekima was going to be weaker? The conditions were almost perfect. I don't know if they mean when we were doing our earlier forecasts for this storm. Let's not forget, JTWC at one point only predicted... Wasn't there one point where they only predicted a tropical storm?
No, it was
Yeah.
like minimal typhoon.
They
I
had
think.
minimal
I'm
Like a
not
typhoon
sure.
for
75
sure.
mile per hour system.
The JTWC's been really out of whack.
So, you know, I mean, if you're saying we lowballed it, JTWC did worse. So, I don't know what you want to make of that.
Well, I think we were going for Category 3 yesterday, right?
We're sort of going for Category 2 in the earlier stages, which wasn't as bad as JTWC, who said Category 1, and then all this happened. And I can't remember the chronology of what our forecasts were, but you could tell when the eye first formed, really, that it would have a decent run. And everyone should be upgrading those forecasts at that point. And that was about, what, 2 days ago, 1.5 days ago, something like that.
Yeah, plus also on the subject of the JTCF, while you were having it at Cat 5, at a Cat 3,
Yeah. Well,
They were
Yeah,
the
that's-
JTWC only
at
updates
3,
once every
4.
6 hours.
the
The JTWC were... You believe that their observations were too low.
was just I think they were just struggling to keep up with the intensification.
That's not the
Yeah,
first
if
time
You
they-
that's
have had it
happened.
at 100 knots.
I mean, at this point, the NHC would be updating once
I'll
every 3
take that
hours,
back.
For example. The
Continue.
JTWC's... Yeah, the JTWC's does once every 6 hours. At this point in time, the NHC would be doing once every 3.
Doing Nathan?
Sorry, was that a question?
No, I just wanted you to move on.
We're moving on. What was I going to say next, though? I've completely forgotten. We're back with that satellite imagery that we're looking at on the
Oh.
screen.
So I guess that was what was happening. Your mind completely blanked.
Well, I was just... I had thought of what I was going to go to next, but the rest of the conversation happened, and I since forgot. Okay, well, at the minute we're looking at more imagery there. Let's zoom out on this now and see if we can look at Krosa as well on that same imagery. There it is on the infrared. Still a lot of dry air out towards its northwest.
Have we gone through some of the model
I
forecasts
think it's
yet
got a
at this
good
point in time?
range shield, though. Yes, we have quite a bit. Actually,
Not really helpful though.
no. Let's go back to visible and zoom out again here so you can see both of these systems. And yes, Eric fans, it is still there. The
Oh,
remnants
no.
of Hurricane
Why?
Eric are still alive, and look how tiny they are. Can you see them, anyone? They
Oh
are
my
right near the right-hand
gosh.
side of the screen, and
If I'm not
still
mistaken-
blowing up a
if
bit
I'm
of
not mistaken-
convection.
If I'm not mistaken, some of the models try to redevelop the remnants as it gets close to the international dateline.
Oh boy.
I've
So-
seen it
Oh,
for the past couple of
please.
days.
That there is the remnants of Hurricane Eric still swirling.
Do we got the remnants of Flossie still going as well?
Well, yeah, they're picking up way further off to the north, and I'm guessing that will become a cold core extratropical cyclone for the Pacific Northwest, maybe? Or Alaska. But compare the tiny diameter of what's left of Eric with
I don't know, man. It looks pretty impressive.
the sheer enormity of Krosa.
Yeah, put Krosa to Eric's remnants to scale, and Krosa's probably like 20 Eric's.
It was 5 yesterday. There's probably about 6 or 7 now. Looks can be deceiving.
That's true. I think you include the whole southeastern part of Krosa, the whole extension from the monsoonal flow. Maybe it's 15 Eric's.
15 Erics.
Yeah.
Alright, if anyone's got any questions for us whilst we're on the air, we are staying on the air, so please get them through to us. What we're really wanting to hear from anyone who is in the area with observations, not just for preparations of this storm, but also the earthquake that happened just about 2 hours ago. Strat, do you have any news on that?
I mean, the news I have right now is there was a 6.4 earthquake about 2 hours ago. I know we were talking about it because happened very briefly before we went live. I'm curious though, do we know yet if they revised the intensity of it at all?
I'm not sure about the USGS, but the Central Weather Bureau in Taiwan went with 6.0.
Okay, so the initial one I saw was 6.4, so it looks like they revised it down a bit.
Well, it's not the same agency, so I couldn't say.
That's true.
But when I was looking at USGS just before we started our stream, I did see it 5.9. So I don't know if they did tone it down. Nonetheless, that earthquake occurred at just a 10-kilometer depth, which is extremely shallow. Shallow earthquakes are more, how do I explain? Felt more, obviously.
More potent.
Yeah,
I guess
so,
more-
you know, a 6 at 10 kilometers might be the same as a 7 at 100 kilometers or something like that depth. I don't know if that's true or whatever it would be, but you'll get that relationship between depth and strength,
Yeah, to
the
put in perspective,
apparent
like,
strength on the ground.
9 or 8 years ago or something on the East Coast, there was like a really minimal earthquake. It was like a 2.0 or something, but it was really close to the surface. I forget how deep it was, but it was something around 10 kilometers, maybe a bit less than that. So even though it was really weak, people from like New York all the way down to like south of DC could still feel it. So a 6.0 per scale is over 10,000 times stronger than a 2.0, if I'm not mistaken.
I can't remember what the calculations
It's I
are.
think every scale is 10 times stronger. So a 3 is 10
Right.
times
So
stronger.
that'd be
than 2.
10,000.
4 is 100 times stronger.
Right.
Oh, so I was right. It is 10,000 times stronger. Okay. Just about right there.
So there you go. So yeah, if anyone is on the ground, we are anxious to hear of any news. In the meantime, any further questions, you can send them in. Start your message with Force 13, all in text. Also, if you want to participate in our discussion, when we're off the air, of course there's a chat section here on our live stream, but when we're not live streaming, you can join our Discord server. It's underneath our video in the description section, and
It's in the chat right now.
it is in the chat. Is it? So it is.
Yes, it is. And Tyler, thank you very much for the contribution as well.
Indeed.
And before we go off, anyone who's been wondering, yeah, I can hear Strat now. I didn't even realize until like a few minutes after he joined that I had him muted.
Yes, indeed.
for some reason.
That's
You
probably
know,
something in the regular call rooms.
And
Speaking of which, I've also seen some comments in the chat, not directly related to the Western Pacific activity, but about thunderstorms on the East Coast in New England. I saw someone
the U.S.
mention
East
a
Coast.
warning. Yeah, I saw someone mention a severe thunderstorm warning for Long Island. Speaking of that, I am about 20 miles north of Long Island, and there is definitely thunder going on right now. Been
I think
hearing
we
some
can
rumbles
hear
throughout
it,
the past
Strat.
30 minutes or so.
So weather events going on all around the world right now. We're still looking at Isaac's screen there. I hope he knows.
Yeah,
And
no.
that's another infrared view. What are you marking out there?
I was trying to draw something, but I don't use this thing that much, and now it's freezing on me now. So
Ah.
you're gonna see that now for like the past next 5 minutes or so. But yeah, it's trying to get its act together. It still hasn't quite cleared out its eye yet. There, as you can see, there's some pinks. You might be able to make out. I don't know if it's too pixelated or not.
Yeah, just
But
about.
there's some pinks. There's some pinks, and there's some really light whitish gray colors in there. And
And for the
that pretty
record,
much means
that
that
isn't very impressive at the minute.
yeah, that pretty much means that the eye is quite clouded out. Oh, now it went away. The eye is really cloudy, and now it's starting to draw again. I'm having technical difficulties as well.
Well, we're all
I think a
having it
reminder that
tonight.
we should still say though that despite the intensity of the system,
Oh.
strong Category 4 storm, is that still only 10% of deaths related to cyclones are actually wind related. The most of them, the very large majority, are actually caused by flooding, rainfall, or storm surge.
Do we
So-
actually
I think
know
it's-
whether those percentages carry around the world?
I'm not sure if they carry on the world. I'm pretty sure it's just a general rule of thumb.
To be honest,
To go
though,
with.
when you think about all the deaths that have happened in China from flooding from storms in the past, there's probably an even higher percentage, at least in China's case. Taiwan is probably more of a wind one because there's so mountainy and water does drop massive, but it ends up flowing off. We gotta take a break here whilst we have that philosophical debate. We'll be back in a few minutes. This is Force 13 Live. More coverage coming up.